Morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. We're good. Yeah, getting by with everything. Things I think, as we all know, are a little bit different these days, but we're adapting. And again, thank you for having us on. We're glad to be here for a third time.
Yeah, she'd call it later in life transition. Yes, we're definitely seeing a slowdown. The governor, as of today and ongoingly through this thing, it hasn't changed his message. Even as things have been easing up, his message always ends with a sentence that resembles, if you're over, what is it, 55, 65, like if you're a senior, if you're a later in life person, if you're an at-risk person, you need to still stay home. So the message for later in life people right now is to still stay home. And the ones that are getting out and doing something are either doing it because they have to or they feel comfortable. And that just seems to be like a small pool of people, because a lot of later in life people are retired. They're in a different phase of their life and they don't have a schedule as much. I mean, of course, there's still later in life people working and doing things that are, traveling and have things going on, but there's also a lot of them that are not. And so we are seeing a slowdown. We are still seeing some activity, but it's not the activity we normally see at this time of year. Across board.
How do I put this? It was a bit of a roller coaster ride when it came to what the governor did with real estate being essential or non-essential, or ancillary businesses being essential or non-essential, and it seemed like there was a bit of a complete stoppage. Now, granted, it felt like it was about 10 minutes when it came to the real estate industry, and now things seem to be in fairly high demand again. But yeah, the last few months have definitely been interesting for you guys.
Yeah, the residential world, generally speaking, has been pretty strong. We're hearing lots of stories across the Denver metro area that in general, real residential neighborhoods, we're seeing multiple offers. We're seeing, I think that it's just this perfect storm where normally a lot more people would be listing right now. There'd be a lot more buyers right now, but because of the pandemic, we have a trickle of listings coming on, not the the backlog that everybody was expecting after things opened up. And there's a lot of buyers who are either waiting it out because they're unsure of the market, or they don't have to move, or if they were planning to move, they're waiting, choosing to rent and wait it out instead. And we're seeing all these different things happen. And then there's people who've lost their jobs. There's people who, are having loan issues, whatever. There's just this wide range of things on both the seller side and the buyer side that is this perfect storm that we still are seeing low inventory and things. Residential real estate has been opened up, and we were only shut down. The whole state was only shut down for 2 weeks before, and then each county kind of opened up slowly. And in that time, the inventory it gradually increased, but not by leaps and bounds. So I imagine that as things continue to improve with the easing of things and everybody's businesses somewhat get back to normal, we should start seeing more and more people come back out, but it's still slow.
Well, I think, what it comes down to, I think what we saw just in general with everything is how much our economy is based on confidence and the kind of the trust that's out there. And right now, especially in that later in life market, the confidence isn't quite back yet. And so there's, just like Amy said, it's just kind of a trickle of things that are out there. And so I think as there's more confidence in as the economy opens up more, and I think at the same time, if we don't see another spike, if we don't see, a huge spike in additional cases, if that were to happen, then I think they will see, they have to see it to believe it, in order, I think, for them to continue to come out and shop for a new home at this point.
Well, we're certainly all concerned about subsequent spikes in cases and what that means for everybody's business, no question. Certainly how it impacts the unemployment rate. We know that there's a fairly close tie to that and housing. Not something that we're going to see for a long time. And I doubt in the major urban areas, certainly like your market, Seattle, San Francisco, Atlanta, New York, whatever, we're still going to face a supply and demand issue, a housing shortage that'll trump any economic issues that this will bring. But obviously more rural areas, more suburban areas, they'll have an impact, no question. I think if we can do what we can to avoid a future significant spike and obviously a future shelter-in-place order or whatever those situations, I'll put it that way, may look like, the better will be. But give us an idea of what you guys have been up to from a day-to-day perspective, a day-to-day lead gen perspective over the last few months. What's been different for you than it was back in January, February?
That's a really great question. We, at first it was, I think, the big question of, well, how long is this going to last? Is it going to be a couple of weeks? And then as it continued, how are we going to continue to adapt to it? And one thing, our company has been strong behind us. They set up regular meetings. We were, doing happy hours, talking about Tiger King and other such events that were happening at the time, and trying to keep things light, but also to keep things positive for one another. But Amy and I, we really looked at, okay, what can we do differently also to a demographic that while they are, most of them are fairly tech savvy, how do we reach that market in a time when we can't do open houses, we can't do in-person showings? How do we stay connected? And we have our listings, sitting out there that obviously there's no activity. So what do we do? And so we really revisited, revamped our virtual buyer and our virtual seller programs which we have always had in place as we've dealt with a lot of people moving in and out of the state. And so we've always had that in place, but really refined it, refreshed it, relaunched it. And I think that was helpful. And we were doing videos out to our clients, just messages. Hey, here's what we're saying. I mean, as you had alluded to earlier and mentioned, things were changing so quickly, especially in real estate, and trying to understand what we can do, what we can't do, what is and isn't allowed. We were all trying to decipher what came out of the orders from the state. And so during that time, we just really kept in contact with our clients just to let them know, hey, we're here for you. We're communicating, and I think that helped a lot as far as our business and kind of gave us the push. It was very uncomfortable. We're not generally people who like to go on video, although here we are, our third time here with you. That has helped, but I think it helped us get more comfortable as a means to communicate with our clients moving forward.
So if you were to give out a piece of advice over the past few months, who knows what we'll bring in future months, I am extrapolating from this that really good contact management is going to be at the top of that list. That, reach out to people, see how you can help, be in touch, communicate, do the kinds of things that, well, certainly that we would preach on a non-COVID era basis, but even more important now than ever.
We did do that. I think that the consistent message forever and a day is the contact database is so critical, so that at a moment's notice, if you have a snowstorm, if you have a pandemic, if you have a slow time, you have your ducks in a row with who to call, what to do, who to market to. So we were sending out stuff to our mass, database. We were isolating groups within our database to address certain things as needed, because with the senior market, we can do some different things. We do a lot of stuff at Windsor Gardens, and there was a lot of different things going on there specifically. So you're able to work on things with that group. And then with our virtual program, even though we had the ability to do virtual things, it was never consolidated into one package where we could advertise it as a package and, spell out what we're doing. So we were able to roll that out. We add some additional features to our website. We redesigned some of our websites. So we did a lot of those things, but then it was just going out to our database continuously to say, hey, this is what we're doing. This is what we've got going on. We're still here. I think the biggest thing is this, there was always a fear too through the pandemic is who's going to make it through it, because we didn't know how long it was going to last. And there are a lot of people, unfortunately, who have struggled, and we're starting to see now that things are opening up who made it and who didn't. And so it was really important to our clients and our family and friends to make sure that they all knew that we were still fully intact. Our team was still here and available, and everybody was working. We have a full-time assistant and a part-time assistant, and our team was, still doing stuff and staying on top of things. So I think just reassuring people that we're here and we're not going anywhere was one of our biggest messages.
Okay. And that's certainly a crucial message. So for those of you watching, listening to the podcast, live or in syndication, certainly do understand that contact management is important 365 days a year, every year of your career, regardless of what's going on when it comes to a pandemic or a blizzard, as Amy put it, so on and so forth. Something else that I really want you guys to be picking up from what the Grossmans are putting down is that they are using this time, or had used this time, very, very wisely when it came to systems, technology. You heard Amy say they did some work on their website, these kinds of things. It wasn't downtime for them. There was no vacation. And we know that a lot of your brethren do this every year when the holidays roll around. Thanksgiving to New Year's is basically a month, not a holiday when it comes to the real estate community. And we certainly see a lot of people with the belief that business slows down in the fall. when really what's going on, of course, is they weren't doing the things they need to be doing during the summer months because they were so embedded in their business, they weren't working on their business. By the time the holidays roll around, a lot of the real estate population believes that people just don't buy and sell houses between Thanksgiving and New Year's, or whatever the case may be. And nothing could be further from the truth. There's plenty of real estate activity, and the neat thing about that era, of course, is that if people are buying and selling during the holidays, they are serious. They are committed to buying and selling. And then the new year rolls around, we start getting into spring, we realize that we need to be busier, we start re-ramping up these activities, and a very similar thing occurred with this pandemic. And we've come across a lot of people that just haven't been doing the things that they need to be doing during these last few months, which is going to have a significant and adverse impact on their business come late summer or fall. Again, we don't really know what's going to happen with future spikes, with future shelter-in-place orders, etc. But what I want our audience to really pick up is that this was not a vacation. This was an opportunity, maybe to make some shifts in how you do your lead gen, focus heavily on your contact management, pick up the phone, do more video, do more social media, so on and so forth, and really invest some time in your systems, in your technology. Make sure that your process is the best it can be. And that when we do return to whatever a semblance of normal looks like, you guys that do that, like the Grossmans have done, are going to be light years ahead of your competition when they get out of the starting gate. So, Amy, thank you. That's some really solid input for our audience. Not that we shouldn't be used to that now in your third episode. So, yeah, let's get back to that. Going forward, it looks like things are reopening. We may be able to handle the spikes in cases that we're seeing across the country. Maybe we don't have to go back to shelter-in-place orders, proper social distancing, so on and so forth. What kind of advice would you give to these people, our audience, new agents, new mortgage originators, or people that certainly haven't seen the kind of success that you guys have seen? What should they be doing right now to put some additional pieces together to make sure that when we do return to normal, they're having a greater modicum of success than they're experiencing right now?
Boy, that's a really great question. And
I guess
so
I'm
many
full
ways.
of them today. Okay. Yay, Adam.
Um, Gosh, I mean, it really, it's still always, to me and to us, it comes down to the basics. I think the biggest challenge right now, and one thing that we've seen in ourselves, in our, business partners, in our friends, in our family, just everything, the difference with this is how mentally draining and how mentally impactful this has been in such a negative way. Just, being holed up for such a long period of time, getting cabin fever. So I think it's, how do you deal with those types of things? So again, surrounding yourself with positivity as much as you can, reaching out to friends, helping, how can you help people? Where can you contribute? I think is one of the biggest things. Being grateful, showing gratitude. I think all of those things to help on the mental side of things, as well as the continual working on your business piece of it. So then, yeah, you're ready to rock and roll. But to me, a lot of it has been surrounded in the mental health side of things.
Well, and let's not gloss over that. This is definitely an important issue. And even when we're not dealing with the kinds of things that we have over the last few months, attitude is everything. It's absolutely important to be positive, to be grateful, to be thankful, to be encouraging, to be helpful, so on and so forth. So, yeah, this is important stuff.
Yeah. So, gosh, I'm, trying, so whether it's, whatever I guess speaks to you, whether it's podcasts, whether it's books, audiobooks, whatever speaks to you, just finding some positivity out there, I think, is the key. But also one thing that's been missing a lot is just our human connection with one another. So how can you socialize in a safe and healthy way during these times. And that is a different answer for different people. We've got people all along the spectrum who are completely afraid to interact with others and be social in person, and others who are like, as if nothing had ever happened, and they're ready to go up and give you a big hug. And so how do you find out where everybody is on that spectrum, and respecting their boundaries, understanding what your boundaries are or what your comfort level is, and kind of working within those. But within that, where do you find that connectivity, and that human aspect of things?
And obviously it is a broad spectrum. There's a lot of different beliefs, takes, concerns, suspicions, so on and so forth. Obviously, having that kind of human interaction, is beyond important. I'm very, very fortunate that way. There are a half a dozen people in my home, myself included. There are a half a dozen people in my office, again, myself included. One of them being Jen. We see Jen at least a few days a week. But Jen, I'd like to get your take on this, because while you have 3,000 or 4,000 pets, you live alone.
Yeah.
So that's got to present its own number of challenges. You're probably coming to the office just for the social interaction.
Yeah, that was absolutely my biggest concern when things started to shut down, was being stuck at home by myself. I mean, I do have 2 cats and 2 dogs, which I can't imagine being stuck at home with no pets and no people. Sometimes I think I'm lucky that my children have 4 legs and not 2 in the pandemic, for sure. No home. I feel bad for anyone who has to homeschool. But I really took the time, to do virtual happy hours, like you guys mentioned, like I know Adam did with his friends, because it was important for me to see their faces. And honestly, it was great because it was my friends back home in Maine that we didn't really typically take the time to see each other face to face. So this kind of gave us even more reason to do it. So I'm hoping that continues even into the new normal. But I had to seek out other ways. Like, I'm big into yoga, and so virtual yoga classes, very weird. My cat was all in my face the whole time, but it was something I needed to get some sort of interaction. And yeah, luckily our office is set up that we still could go in once a week and stay safe that way if we wanted to. So definitely a benefit of our work environment. But I got back to the basics of reading more, and yoga, and bubble baths, and Zoom calls with friends, and whatever it took to just keep my head on straight. But I do feel like I'm lucky that I live in an apartment complex. There are people around, but it wasn't easy by any means.
That makes a lot of sense. I think I substituted that normal social activity with yard work.
That's true. You did.
So yeah, I've got a better tan, and I'm in better physical shape. And we do now have some incredible outdoor living space that would be ideal for a party if we were allowed to have one. But obviously that will be some time to come. But what about you two personally? What are we doing to fill those gaps? I mean, we're not going places. We're not seeing sporting events. What are you guys doing individually to fill those gaps? And forgive me, because one of those big items is, if memory serves, you guys have a child that is a student athlete. And we haven't had any athletics in months. How has that been going?
So we spent most of the break, honestly, really trying to work with the kids to stay on some sort of schedule and try to have some normalcy in the house, where all of us were trying to go on walks, try to get something done in the day, put things on the schedule. They were doing their online school for a bulk of the shutdown. And so we had to stay on top of that every day. And then with our daughter who plays softball, she was having to do a lot of reps. She has a net and she has balls and a tee and everything here. And she would take it out into the yard or in the basement. And she would get her work in. So because we didn't know if it was going to be a few weeks, we didn't know what it was going to be, and it turned into most of the summer. But she's already played. She just got done playing this weekend, so she's had 3 tournaments. One was in Oklahoma and one was in Wyoming, and then this weekend she was here. But they're going to Texas this coming weekend. So it's been slowly unrolling with our son. His whole soccer got closed off for spring, and he just started doing some camps again last week, and we're hoping that'll roll back out here in the fall. But he also started bowling, and so we've been waiting for the bowling. We wanted to get him into his bowling league, so we're still waiting for that to get unrolling. So right now, everyone's still kind of flailing around. We're still trying to find things to do during the day and keep busy. You know, Scott and I are trying to work, but we're trying to make sure our kids have something to do as well. Our daughter just got her license, so she's able to drive and go see friends and have some sort of normalcy, you know, go to meals and such. But we're still trying to figure it out, probably like a lot of people.
Yeah, there is definitely a lot to figure out. And we followed the same path. In fact, our older son picked up his driver's license in May, although it should have been April, but again, pandemic. And it was accompanied by a car that needs a lot of work. So he's been able to stay occupied in that arena as well. So you guys have had some successes, some failures, some trial, some error. But it seems to me that all things being equal, you guys have really persevered through these last 3 or 4 months.
Yeah, I would say we've had our moments, right?
Definitely had our moments.
We all have.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not all unicorns and rainbows.
Understood. That period where we were sheltered in place, while still having a unessential business. Obviously, just the tips is not it, but the mortgage company that I own was considered essential. But that month that we were sheltered in place, my home office started to feel real small at the end of that. I was grateful to have that order lifted and go back to the office on not a full-time basis, but certainly much more than the 1 day a week we were rotating around. Well, tell us some more. I mean, actually, let's do this. Let's make sure that we don't run out of time, because there's something that's really been of interest to me. I know you guys have a team. Are we still building? Are we still growing?
We've never really planned on growing bigger than what we've got. We've been very content with the team that we have. We've been able to handle our workload within what we've got. I think that the way we delegate and the way that things go, I mean, we tend to list a lot more than, working with buyers. We get buyers and sellers, but the most that we get is listings, just because of our niche. And so a lot of our time is administrative, but a lot of it is repetitive. So, after a while, I think our full-time assistant's now been with us, 3 years, 4 years?
3, yeah.
3 years. And it just runs like clockwork, so that's been good. If we there's been times where we felt like we were exploding and we needed to get more help, and we did that. But now I feel like if we needed more help, we could outsource and we can get stuff. And we've had to do that a couple of times, but we're not thinking that we're trying to grow into a bigger team. There's been a couple of times we've talked about, do we get a buyer agent? Do we get, a listing specialist so that we can delegate more time? But so far, we haven't needed to do that.
Good. Yeah. All right. Well, and as always, tell our audience how to find you.
Well, our website is grossmandreamhomes.com, and we're with Madison and Company Properties. And is that it?
Yeah. You can. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram at Grossman Dream Homes. Grossman Dream Homes on Facebook. So you can find us there. Connect with us. We're always an open book. Happy to help anybody who has any questions or would like to talk further about anything.
Well, Jen, assuming you don't have anything else that you want to inquire about, obviously we've gotten to know the Grossmans pretty well. I know this isn't the most comfortable medium for getting out there for you guys. Jen and I are truly, truly grateful that you're willing to do this with us, especially a
Yes.
third time, especially to be the first guests to do this a third time in all these years. So thank you truly from the bottom of our hearts. We are,
Thank you.
we're extremely grateful that you guys are willing to step out of your comfort zone a little bit for us and certainly for our audience, because there is a lot of great insight there. And if you are a member of that audience and you want to reach out to the Grossmans, you want to reach out to us, you want to be a guest on the show, you want to see previous episodes, you want to see our weekly video blog that I'm sure Jen will start distributing here shortly after we go off air. If you want a copy of my book, Just the Tips, use that text code at the bottom of your screen, text TIPS to 63566. It'll ping you back all that stuff. And it's funny because we did get this question on a podcast last week where I was actually the guest. Somebody asked, what happens if you text that? Do you get inundated with this ridiculous storm of texts? The answer is no. As much as Jen and I like to harass people, you're going to get a single text back and nothing further. So don't be too disappointed. Or maybe we shouldn't be too disappointed. Other than that, thank you all for watching. Again, Grossmans, thank you so much for joining us. Don't go too far. We're going to run our extra, and we will talk again off camera. Bye, guys.
Thank you.
You bet.